ask it?
Yeah.
All right.
You're going to read them all.
How much money, Mike, have you won as a professional poker player?
Oh, boy.
And what type of poker do you really like to play? What's your
Well,
favorite?
in tournament poker, I guess you can look it up a little bit. I think it's about 6 million or so. And in cash games, how many IRS agents are listening to this show right now? Huh? I don't know. You know, back in my day, I was always the worst record keeper that you could be as a professional poker player. You know, when I played for like 20 years for a living and didn't have another job, you know, you knew at the end of the month if you could pay the rent and the bills, you had a good month. That's what I went by, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And myself, you know, I have done well in cash games over the year, but I didn't really keep the money because I have a problem with the racetrack and other little leaks, as we like to call it. So
Yeah, I have big leaks. You have little leaks. That's the difference. And betting sports, before you ask the question, betting sports, that's my big league. Kept me broke for 25 years. All right. I love it, though. Go ahead.
Now, Mike, do you hate how popular the poker game has become? Do you resent that because we played it when it was unpopular, no one even knew what it was a like a secret game? Did you dislike that it's become so gigantic?
You know, I don't, because it's nice to see the game grow as it has, not just in the U.S., but globally. But honestly, back in the early days when I went to the World Series of Poker, back in the 80s, the mid-80s, the early 80s, when you had just really a reunion of big-time gamblers that would come out once a year to play in poker tournaments, it was much more close-knit group. You knew everybody there. They took such good care of you. They fed you. They had ice carvings and everything at Benyon Sports back in the day. And really, I do miss that atmosphere and that camaraderie that we had in the old days that I don't think we have today.
And I got to add one thing about Mike, because he is a visionary. And back in the mid-90s, he went on some interview. No one cared about poker. It's rare that you can get an interview, and he got an interview. And he was saying that someday he thinks poker will be big, and there'll be sponsor money, and it'll become a gigantic game. And that's exactly what happened. And due to your success of creating World Poker Tour with Steve Lipscomb, you helped a lot with that. It's actually come true, so you got to respect Mike for that as well.
All right, thank you. What's next we got?
Yeah. Well, let's see. We're going to move that down a little bit so I can read it.
All right.
By the way, I'm not wearing these for the look. It's really because I can't see, and I got a prescription at the bottom of these. So let me see what we got here. Oh boy, what does this mean? What? Who's your daddy, and what does he do? Like,
who's your daddy and what you do? Well, my daddy taught ballroom dance lessons for 40 years, taught classes, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. And Vince, I think everybody knows who your daddy was.
Well, not everybody, but that's nice. My father was Dick Van Patten, and he passed away just a few months ago. And he loved poker. He loved life and doing things in life, but he loved poker and gambling and the racetrack. So I learned everything from him.
He actually did commentary at the World Series of Poker back in the 90s for a couple of years, and you did with him a year or two. So that was before television. You couldn't see the cards, nothing.
But you know what? Also, he played 7-card stud, 5-card draw. You know, Hold'em that wasn't his favorite game. And we used to play every game. That was fun too.
Well, when I played North Carolina for a living, in home games, we had a rule: if you could explain it, you could deal it. So, you know, I played wild cards, crisscross, replace a card, every game you could think of, and it really helped me in my poker career, no doubt about it, in becoming a multiple game player, like I think all professional players should become. All right, next question, Manny. What do we got?
I think the next question is for both of us. And are there any poker sites you trust? And if you've been watching poker for a long, long time, what's the worst beat you've ever seen? That is from.
Well, probably the worst beat we ever saw came at the final table at the Bay 101 one year, where the flop come King 3-3. The one guy flopped Kings full, the other guy had a pair of sevens. And it came 7-7, and the guy made 4 sevens to win that pot on the World Poker Tour. I mean, in any poker game, it just doesn't come any worse than that, where you had to hit 2 exact cards to win the pot, and that's what happened. And it feels like we've taken a few of those in our day, though, hasn't it been?
You get the one-outers for sure, and that just it stings when you're playing for the big money. So it does happen, though. And what about the poker site that you trust? I know you represent.
Well, you know, I started Party Poker, and you know, it's in the interest of all sites to be honest, to be reputable, to pay off players, to, you know, have a sense of honesty that everybody can trust the site. And, you know, certainly there's always possibilities that people are going to be talking on the phone to each other in bigger games, saying what they have. I mean, you're never going to be able to stop that completely, but, you know, they have tracking devices now that detect when things are unusual, like certain players are playing in games together, certain players are playing in X number of pots together. And so there are ways that you can track down when guys are doing things that are a little unsavory, let's say. And certainly it's gotten better and better, and going to continue to get better, I hope, for everybody. And, you know, everybody just wants to play online poker and have fun with it. And, you know, but you have to trust the integrity of the site that you play on for sure.
Next question, Mike, is do you watch hands prior to doing commentary on them, or is it usually just a dry run?
Actually, I'll tell you the truth, as most of you may know or may not know, what happens is, at the day of the final tables, of the WPT final tables, probably only about 20% of what Vince and I say that day make it to the show. We don't see the players' whole cards. So anytime somebody's all in, the cards are face up, some of that commentary might make the final table. But otherwise, we go back to the studio in Los Angeles, rewatch the whole show again, you know, where we do see the cards. And honestly, Vince and I do not see them before we go back to that studio. So it's like we're seeing it live when it happens, and we try to react that way.
That's true. We don't actually look at it.
Yeah, we don't do homework.
I'm gonna think of something. We actually just let it present itself. That's why it's good, because it's exciting that way.
Yeah, we don't rehearse lines. In fact, nobody's ever given us a line in our 14 years out here in the World Poker Tour. We don't have writers, Vince. Why don't we have that?
Maybe that's our problem. What percentage of professional poker players would you say are gambling addicts, Mike? And this person's heard stories. So many big-name pros act like degenerates at the casinos and private games. What do you think?
I think most of us are. I think if you have the balls, am I allowed to say that? Yeah, I did. If you
have the balls.
All right. If you have the balls to really gamble in high stakes poker, okay, you have a certain blood in you that likes to take risks. And most high stakes poker players that I know also risk money betting high on the golf course. They risk money betting on sports. They may bet in the pit. They may do other things, but generally they have gamble to them. At least that's what I've discovered in my years and years of being around the high stakes gamblers. That, you know, if you're a really big stakes poker player, generally you're pretty much going to gamble on about everything.
That means you're a degenerate.
I am. I admit it. I already admit it. I am.
But honestly, I think there's some that can control it. You know, they love to gamble, but they're businessmen as well, and that's a rare bunch, though.
Honestly, I do think today's breed of player are much different than yesteryears. The only player I knew in the history of poker that played ultra high stakes poker, the biggest games in the world back in the day, who did never bet in the pit, who never bet on sports, was Puggy Pearson. He's the only one. Now, when it came to betting on himself, on the golf course, on gin rummy, on backgammon, on poker, on whatever, if he was involved, he'd bet as high as anybody. But he never bet his money on someone else. He always bet it on himself. He's the only one, incidentally, that I know that didn't bet on anything else.
Do you guys want to take some Twitch questions over here?
Sure. We're going to take some Twitch questions.
Do you have a step-by-step thought process while going through hands?
Okay, a step-by-step thought process of going through hands. Well, obviously, you should be paying attention at the table, every hand, whether you're playing the pot or not, to watch tendencies of players, to see who's raising the most pots, who's the tightest players at the table are, who defends their blind, who raises every time on the button. It gives you a lot of access and information about all these players and their style of play, and certainly that's the number one thing you should do at the table. Within 30 minutes of every game you ever play in, you should know if a guy's a fast player, a slow player, a rock. That's pretty obvious stuff, you know. You can also pick up tells on how they stack their chips up at the table. They stack them up very meticulously. Generally, they're a tight player, and you can pretty much go by that, you know. But as a hand comes down, you know, if a guy calls a 3-bet before the flop or calls a raise before the flop and then check raises on the flop, for example, now you got to sort out if he's got a hand or a draw. That's your number one priority, I think, at the table. And obviously, as you progress to the turn and to the river, the betting patterns and tells will give you an idea of how to classify his hand down, whether he's got a real hand or he's bluffing. Honestly, that's a decision you have to make.
And I think that my number one priority at the table is finding the cocktail waitress so I can get a drink, and I just try to get lucky. Bottom line.
What do you guys do in your time away from broadcasting?
What do we do when our time away from broadcasting? Well, I have a son that just turned 7, so I spend a lot of time with him now. Vince has got 3 sons as well. We spend a lot of time with the families actually, and but other than that, you know, I love to watch sports and you know, bet on the sports, play golf. I dance occasionally, like to go to the movies. That's the kind of stuff I like to do.
Yeah, he's got a great life, and I like that type of thing as well. Not the dancing, but I wish I could. But I play a lot of sports and tennis still, and paddle.